Jalin Hyatt named NFL Rookie of the Week. Just as Josh Dobbs' play starts to falter a little bit, I have no issue with that. I think you get figured out after a couple of games, and now it's up to Dobbs to kick it up another level. And he's one of the guys, I'll tell you frankly, that I believe in, and he will do so. Hendon Hooker makes his practice debut. I'm not a believer in Jared Goff. I am a believer now in the Lions, which I wasn't when he was originally drafted. I like what they're doing. Dan Campbell's a little bit of a goofball and a little bit too beloved as their head coach, but they'll end up on the right path, and I like Hendon Hooker's future a lot. But I want to go back to Jalin Hyatt. It's easy to say because Joe Milton's play that you missed Hendon Hooker more than anything from the 2022 season. However, I could make a strong argument that Tennessee missed Jalin Hyatt nearly as much as Hendon Hooker. There are a lot of balls that Hendon Hooker threw to Jalin Hyatt where he was bare, and I mean wide open, and he runs like 38 miles an hour, and we underestimated, I did at least, his talent level and the way he could change an offense. He is going to be, at the very least, a 10-year starter in the NFL and might end up being an all-pro. How much did we overlook Jalin Hyatt's departure?
A lot. I considered him a total system guy.
I did too.
Dead wrong. Yeah, I was dead wrong on that. And by the way, the hype behind Jalin Hyatt started in entering 2021. Everybody thought he'd be the go-to receiver, and they were shocked when it was Cedric Tillman and Velus Jones Jr. A lot of that hype comes from, Dave, I know this, the previous coaching staff. Jeremy Pruitt and Jim Chaney loved Jalin Hyatt. They wanted him specifically on the recruiting trail. And whatever you guys think about Jeremy Pruitt, that dude knows talent. He knew talent better than any. He may be the best talent evaluator Tennessee's ever had as a head coach. I can honestly say that. Like, Jeremy Pruitt evaluated talent like nobody's business. I can't go Philip Fulmer because Philip Fulmer had way too many busted recruiting classes in 2002 and 2005.
It's completely two different comparisons. There's a 67 Ford Galaxy that I want to buy down the road from me, but it's not a 2022 Audi either. You know what I mean? There's a lot more
Brooks over Patrick Willis.
Right. No, I'm with you there. But there's a lot more history there. If you want to make a comparison, what's better, Jeremy Pruitt on the defensive side of the ball and or overall, or Lane Kiffin on the offensive side of the ball?
As an actual coach, I would
take
a
recruiter.
Excuse
me. Talent evaluator. Those are the words.
Jeremy Pruitt. I would take Jeremy Pruitt evaluating offense over Lane Kiffin evaluating offense. I saw what Lane Kiffin did with that 2009 recruiting class at Tennessee. He did not evaluate talent well at all. And then he went and got a huge recruiting class at USC when he went that first year after leaving Tennessee. And that was, again, a bust of a recruiting class. I think Kyle Prater was like the biggest star they got at receiver. Remember, you probably thought Kyle Prater was going to Tennessee, didn't you, before Lane Kiffin left? And never heard him again at USC. Lane Kiffin recruits on star ratings, guys. He recruits on star ratings. He goes by the services, and he doesn't evaluate. I'm just going to say that.
Let's be fair with this Hyatt conversation for just a little bit. Travis brings up Hyatt was plagued by drops his first 2 years, so I think clearly that he improved his game. He was the guy who was on the jugs machine like an extra 250 catches. For those that don't know, the jugs machine shoots the ball out and you catch it. Gary does bring up a good point about Pruitt. Pruitt was so good he called Michael Penix, and said, hey, we're going in a different direction. And there's always trouble. Yeah, right. But there's always trouble when Penix goes in a different direction.
But that was a smart... Guys, Penix isn't even playing that good down the stretch of this season. At the Pac-12, we kind of overrated him in the middle of the year. He hasn't played well the last few weeks. And he wouldn't have been a good fit for what Pruitt was trying to do. And if we're comparing, you want to talk about that, Lane Kiffin pushed Taj Boyd out, and he actively did not try to recruit Cam Newton.
Okay, so it's on the YouTube message board right now. It's changing. What ball would you miss the most from this class? Aaron Beasley at 36% is number one. Joe Milton, the third Esquire Junior Senior, at 27%. Jacob Warren at 18%, and Ramel Keaton at 18%. I don't know what you're thinking. I'm
putting this
Jacob
out there.
Yeah, give Jacob Warren some love there. We got to do that. Penix would have done better down south. look at that. That's terrible, Caleb. I'm disappointed. But with Hyatt, with Hooker, with the whole group, I think we definitely underestimated them to a large extent.
What's more encouraging, you think, long term? Hyatt getting his finally breakout game when the Giants have the most incompetently run team in the NFL right now, maybe, and they finally realize that they got this weapon and they should use him, or seeing Hooker back at practice? And also another question, Dave. Who lasts longer, Hyatt or Hooker in the NFL?
Ooh, that really is a difficult question.
Like if Hooker makes it as a starter, he lasts longer because quarterbacks last longer than receivers.
Well, here's my thoughts. Hendon is at the very least going to have a Joshua Dobbs type of career where he hangs out because he's a hard worker and he's smart, right? I mean,
yes,
at the very least, he's going to hang out in the NFL for 8-10 years.
And he's got a much better arm than Dobbs, too. I love Dobbs, but Hooker's
well, yeah,
but
I mean, with Jalin, I think what we're evaluating is he going to be a star? Because I think Hooker's going to be around. So do you think Hyatt's going to be a star? If you think Hyatt's going to be a star, then you would take him over Hooker.
Yeah. No, you're right. And also
by a star, I mean 4 or 5 Pro Bowl selections, and really all pro, because the way they turn down Pro Bowl selections is the one that matters. I mean 2 or 3 all pros. Those you don't turn down.
Hooker is the type of guy, if he hangs around like Dobbs and he gets his shot, he would do better than Dobbs to me, because he can do everything Dobbs can do, but he'll also have the better arm. And so I think that really opens the door. And you see, I don't know if you watched the game the other night, Minnesota. And I understand why they're trying to keep Dobbs more in the pocket right now, because as you know, Dave, in the NFL, you can't constantly roll out to make passes. You do have to start throwing from the pocket more. And the problem with Dobbs is his arm is just, it's what you told me. And you're right. It's true. I love him. And I still think he could get it figured out, but he's got a really weak arm. I mean, his arm compared to NFL quarterbacks is like Rick Clausen's arm was compared to other college quarterbacks in 2005. And it's just.
Yeah. And there's a bare minimum.
There's a bare minimum.
It's like are you ever on the interstate and it says minimum speed 45 miles an hour? I mean,
yes.
Or you have to get off the interstate. Joshua Dobbs is right at about 46 miles an hour.
He is. That's a very good comparison. He's right there. And I just don't know if. Now, I want to be fair. Josh Dobbs, of those 4 interceptions he threw Monday night, that was bad. 2 were drop passes. And he did lead a game-winning drive. And he led a game-winning drive amidst all that. And had Brian Flores not decided to not blitz on the final drive, which, Dave, my biggest pet peeve is how defensive coordinators change their defense on the last drive. Even if they've been doing it right the whole game, they decide, we're not going to bring pressure in. What is the point of playing soft coverage on a 2-minute drive when 2 minutes is an eternity to go down the field and score anyway?
If you're up 2 scores, I got no problem with it because you burn clock. But if you're up 1 score, I got a problem with it.
He was up 1 point. Meaning all Chicago had to do is getting field goal range.
Well, I do hate it when people say prevent is never used. It should never be used. No, if you're up 30 in the 4th quarter, it's okay to use prevent.
It should be used. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of my little pet peeves.